That CCFC nickname's about to take on a whole new meaning because Caitlin Clark is apparently part of an ownership group trying to bring an NWSL team to Cincinnati. And, we know that Clark grew up playing soccer, was a standout soccer player before she decided to play basketball, and then obviously became the biggest figure in the history of women's basketball. And I do think when it's all said and done, Caitlin Clark will become the most influential figure in the history of women's sports, period. I've said it before. I think she's the next face of basketball, maybe already is the face of basketball going forward. She has completely changed the state of the women's game, the state of the WNBA, and now is in a position to do things with her power and influence. And we already have seen what she was able to do with the Nike deal, what she's able to do selling her own merchandise. Clearly, a lot of revenue is coming in for her, and that will only continue to expand and grow as she continues to grow her portfolio and continues to grow the game. And the longer she's tenured, the more money she makes, the bigger she becomes, the more she can leverage said fame. But the report that's out there is that Clark, as you can see, joins ownership group aiming to bring NWSL team to Cincinnati. I first saw that from Adam Schefter, so I want to give him credit for that, which shows you the status of Clark, right? That he reports on that when he gets that information because of her star power and the fact that, that's not even his beat per se. So he does the other football, American football, but he reports on this, and we've seen the demand for WNBA teams grow. There's a lot of people wanting to get on that expansion list. Jason Tatum was part of a group. I mentioned Mahomes part of a group. Dan Gilbert and the Cavaliers, the Cleveland, a part of that group. It feels like there's more than a dozen ownership groups vying for a spot in the WNBA. We've already seen the success of the Golden State Valkyries and their season ticket allotment. So this is all great for women's sports. And it's great for women's sports if soccer continues to grow here in the United States. Because unlike on the men's side, the women on the U.S. have actually been a superpower, a powerhouse. On the men's side, the rest of the world just dominates, relatively speaking, the U.S. in soccer. We're certainly not up there like we are in other sports like basketball per se. But on the women's side, that hasn't been the case. And there have been those great U.S. women's national teams. And the NWSL, is a expanding league, as you see. There are people wanting to be a part of that. And now one of those people wanting to be a part of it is Caitlin Clark. Now, don't oversell it when you're a part of an ownership group like that. She's not the heavy money, right? Like she's not the heavy investor, but it does show her influence and what she can do as a figurehead. I mean, even when the Nets, let's take them for an example, when they moved from New Jersey to Brooklyn, Jay-Z didn't have much stake in the Nets, and he has a lot more money than Caitlin Clark has right now. He didn't have much stake in the Nets, but his influence and face and brand and all that brought tons of power to what they were trying to do. And, I've always joked about growing up in Maryland, wanting to be a New Yorker in large part because, Hatcock can't see his eyes. Who could it be? With that new blue Yankee on, who but me? Like that was a real lyric that people were rocking the blue Yankee caps back in the day. Or when he says on Empire State of Mind, I made the Yankee hat more famous than a Yankee can. I do believe he did make the Yankee hat more famous than any individual Yankee. Now, it's a little bit of a tangent, but it goes to show you what having an influential figure like that can mean for a rebranding, because I think he was the face of the Nets rebrand, even though he owned less than 10% of the team or whatever it was, despite, now being a billionaire. Caitlin Clark is not going to be the heavy investor in this project, but if they do get deeply involved, I think you'll probably see her face as part of it and selling it, because who better positioned to promote women's sports and sell women's sports than Caitlin Clark, who did it on the soccer field, has done it at a level, we've never seen before from a pop culture standpoint on the basketball court, not to mention the performance aspect, and from generating interest. I mean, this is a real moment in time. It really is. And I don't want to, you can call me a stan or whatever, but I've seen it happen through how I'm communicating to you right now. I've seen it happen. So CCFC definitely taking on a whole new meaning. I always wonder, I consider basketball players to be the best athletes in the world. I mean, particularly on the men's side, because there's only like 450 spots in the NBA, and you're compensated so well, and it's easy to play basketball. It's easily accessible. It's available across the globe. So you don't ever see anybody who was good enough for the NBA turn it down, I guess is what I'm saying. And I've always wondered how NBA players would look if they played soccer their whole lives, what the U.S. team would look like if the best athletes on the men's side played soccer. It would be interesting to see what Caitlin Clark had looked like if she had continued that soccer career. She was scoring goals at a crazy clip, like 4 goals a game when she was doing it at the high school level. But her teammates had said her commitment to basketball actually irritated them because she was playing basketball around their games or practicing, and she chose well. She chose the right sport, because as good as she was at soccer, it's hard to imagine she could have been better than she is at basketball.